Hello everyone and welcome to Zach's Garage. Today you join me for a very special episode where we're looking at something truly special. Now as you can tell by the title, this is the Koenigsegg RSN. So without further ado, with the help of the air shroud, I give to you the RSN. Now, as you guys know, Koenigsegg has played a big role in my YouTube channel, and this is one of the pinnacle Koenigsegg's, the RS, or in this case, the RSN. So it brings me great privilege to show you all around this amazing Koenigsegg RSN. Now, the beginning of this video is going to be about the aesthetics. That's the colour and the bodywork. So let's start with the colour. This is called Joshua Blue. Now, the reason why it's called Joshua Blue is a fantastic story. So originally, the owner of this had a Focus RS in nitrous blue. Now, what he thought, you know what? I want a Koenigsegg that colour, but because he didn't want to call it nitrous blue because it was from Ford, he named it after his son Joshua. Now I think that is such a cool story. So the Joshua Blue features this brilliant bright blue with none other than diamond dust in the paintwork to make it look incredible in this light. Now as you guys can see, it really does pop. It contrasts with the white and with the black carbon as well. It is just the perfect spec for one of these cars. Now, the white lines, they are on the leading edges. Now what that means is that if you took them away, it's the edges that you could see, but they're a little bit sharp to contrast between the blue and the carbon. So adding a different colour just separates the car, gives it a bit more of an aggressive look, and also just makes everything pop. So where are the white lines? They're all the way over the top, throughout the interior, exterior. So we will get to that in a second. But let's also talk about what makes this the RS, and that's aerodynamics and power. So the front end of the car features an extended front splitter with the 3 wingtips on the side which add downforce with active aerodynamics in the front, and they feature 2 front flaps that can move independently inside the sort of gubbins in here. And what that does is that means that yes, okay, you can't see it, but you know that when you're going around a corner at 1 billion miles an hour, this thing is still sticking like absolute glue. Now, I think there are only a very few amount of people who can explain the Koenigsegg technology. I'm not one of those people. Christian definitely is. But believe me when I say the technology within this car is truly incredible. Now let's head to the side of the car where I can talk to you about more of the aerodynamic and some of the colours as well. Now, if we follow this white line down, you can see it highlights the side of the car, but it also highlights the extended air intake. Now, there's obviously a reason for all of these things. What that is that the wider the hole, the more air that can be focused into the turbos, the more turbo spool, and we all love turbo spool. You can also see there's a white aspect down here on the fin that adds aerodynamics, but the white line just highlights the little fin that you may not be able to catch if it wasn't highlighted. So let's move to the back of the car where there's even more. Now if we look at the side here, it says RSN. Now the N stands for Neil. Now that's the name of the owner of the car. Now I think you know you've made it when you name your hypercar after yourself. I think that's pretty cool. A lot of you guys may have seen the Agera N. That was his previous car. So naming 2 hypercars after himself. Yeah, I think he's winning a little bit there, isn't he? If we move further back though, we have the Koenigsegg titanium exhaust, and as a lot of you may know, that changes colour according to heat. So when it's cold, it'll be sort of like this goldish, but once it's been really heated up, it goes blue, gold, and really like an incredible colour. Really rather special. And also, this thing sounds awesome. Now, because it's not our cars, what you guys must understand, I really hope you do, I'm not going to rev it. I will start it up for you, but I'm not going to rev it because it's not our car, and these aren't 488 Ferraris that are $250,000. This thing is several million pounds, more specifically £5 million. That is ludicrous. But I think what you guys really want to see is what's under this hood. So let's open it up. So let's talk about the engine for a second. The engine, as much as it's an incredible fact that it's a 5 litre V8 twin turbocharged, and it can output up to 1,160 brake horsepower. What I think is almost more incredible is thanks to the carbon fibre air intake, the aluminium block, this engine weighs 182 kgs. Now, I know that sounds like just a number, but actually that's nothing for an engine. That is just ludicrous, and that's so typical Koenigsegg, because if it's too heavy, it's just not going on the car, so they have to design a way to make it lighter. Now, I've actually held the air intake of one of these, and it is amazing. It's much like the carbon fibre air core wheels. You can pick it up with one finger, and the centre balances on your finger. I mean, that just shows the amount of attention to detail Koenigsegg go into when it comes to this car. The gearbox is a 7-speed semi-automatic gearbox. Now, what that means, obviously, you've got the paddles, but what I think is even more impressive about this car is the fact that it runs the flex fuel system. Now, what that is, it was featured on the Agera R, which was the first car to use it, which means you can put normal, everyday Sainsbury's fuel in it, but then you can also run it on E85, and it can automatically adjust according to what fuel you've put in it. But what that also does is it adjusts the horsepower. So on E85, which costs £1 trillion a gallon, it can run the full 1,160 brake horsepower, but if you use lower end fuel, it runs a lower brake horsepower. But to have a system that does that, only Koenigsegg once again. So very cool. But whilst we're here, I think it's probably important to hear this insane engine start up. Now let's talk about the suspension for a second. Now, if you guys have watched my other Koenigsegg videos, you would have heard the word triplex. Now, that's Koenigsegg's rear damper system, and it's been used throughout most Koenigseggs from about 2010 onwards. That's the 1-to-1, the Agera R, and so on. What that does is it provides more structural rigidity and also helps the suspension give another angle of compression. It also means that this thing has something truly special. New to the Koenigsegg RS is the electronic adjustable shock absorbers. Now, what that is, it's obviously hydraulically operated, but it's individual to each wheel. So it works in conjunction with the triplex suspension and the Öhlins dampers to make each wheel move independently according to your corner or the setting that it's in. So for instance, normal mode, it's a little bit higher and a little bit softer. In race mode, the car drops just a little bit and also activates the independent suspension. Now, obviously you can't see that, but you can also immediately tell when it's happening on the road, because there's such a difference between these and other Koenigsegg's with the electronic suspension. Now let's take a little look through the inside of this unique car. So the inside, it is blue Alcantara with a mix of black anodized aluminium and also carbon fibre. Obviously you'd expect a bit of carbon fibre in this sort of car. Now, I've seen some specs of the RSs and some of them are a lot more bare than this. This is actually significantly more luxurious. So what's got in it? So the whole centre console is a mix between black aluminium or black anodized aluminium and this matte carbon fibre, which I think is really nice. Obviously we've got it on our Agera R as well, but there have been some interesting changes to the car that aren't necessarily just because it's an RS. For example, the key. One of the problems with the keys was you didn't know where to put them, but Koenigsegg made the keys smaller, a bit lighter, and also gave them a place to go. Just here, there is a small key holder that you can place the key in, which also puts your Koenigsegg key on display. Now that means when you're doing 280 miles an hour, your key isn't flying about, because I know from a fact that the massive silver key that we have for our Agera R flies about like absolute crazy, and it's really rather annoying. So clever design from Koenigsegg there. But let's talk about more specific things. The steering wheel. So that has had a little bit of an update on it. So the front suspension lifter has been changed from here on the suspension. It also gives cruise control, audio selection, volume up and down for the radio, and mode selection for, not for the driving, but actually for the screen. Now moving on to the screen's also been changed from the recent Ageras for the new Regera screen. So it's a little bit more simple, but actually rather clean. There's less going on, which you can clearly see now. And also, it clearly shows the most important thing, which is how fast you're going. Now I think it's probably about time we talked about infotainment, because there's also been a bit of a bad rap for Koenigsegg saying, oh, you know, they don't have radio and stuff like that. It's sort of true, but let me clear some of that up. Now the first thing you'll see on the infotainment screen is a Koenigsegg Agera RS, which I think is rather cool. You can clearly see it because it's got the rear wing and all the front carbon bits on it as well, so I think that's rather cool. You can adjust the temperature here by adjusting it using your finger, which I think is rather special, and by pressing this you can switch air conditioning on and turn up the vents there, but for now we'll leave that off. You can also do front heated windscreen, that's AC on and off, but anyway, let's move on from there. Tyre pressures 26, 23, 23, 23, so that one is probably just because of the way it's sitting, but yeah, quite clever there. Car setup, so as mentioned, performance mode, wet, snow, normal and racetrack. Racetrack obviously adjusts the suspension, drops it, and gives it the whole active suspension-y bits. Traction control, obviously you can switch it on and off. What's different to this though is you actually have to hold it for 1 second to make sure you actually want to do it. I can understand that. It's a hell of a thing to do. System, something you'll never really go into apart from to connect your phone to. Here you can see it goes 5G, 3G, but to be fair, most of this stuff is for the Koenigsegg mechanics. Display brightness, you can drop it and you can raise it. We'll leave that on full for now. So then here you've got audio, that obviously fades it from left to right and the door to the dashboard, so you can really center it. At the moment it's obviously dead center. Along here you can change, this is quite cool, distance, miles per hour or kilometers an hour, Fahrenheit or degrees C, pressure, bar or PSI, and you can change the time format as well. If we move further on here, this is all Koenigsegg stuff, gives you your VIN number, so this is number 95. Or 195. Odometer gives you the exact mileage, so this is on 5,939, so almost 6,000 miles. And so yeah, something quite clever there. So the controls here, most of you guys know it, windows up and down both sides, lights on and off, parking lights, that is the normal sort of halo lights that go around the side, lock and unlock the doors, fog lights and interior lights as well. So even though there's only 2 interior lights, it's still rather cool. Hazard lights down here and the almighty on-off button, which is rather special. So let's go outside to just wrap up the video and talk about something that everyone has been waiting for. Now I would have switched the car off, but I think we all love the sound of it, so I'm going to leave it on for now. Now the point you're probably all wondering, well, what was he saying about what have we all been waiting for? That's the facts and figures on the car. So, top speed, over 280 miles an hour. That makes it the current world's fastest car. Now that can vary depending on the rear wing, because the world's fastest car had a smaller rear wing, which means that there's less drag, but this one looks cooler, and realistically I'm sure if they tested it, it would be exactly the same speed anyway. This also holds the current record of 234 miles an hour repeatedly, and then it went over that to break the VMAX record in England, which is something truly special. So I hope you guys have really enjoyed this video as much as I've enjoyed making it, because being around stuff like this you just don't get to. So if you have any questions at all, comment down below and I will do my best to answer them. Thank you again so much to the owner of this. His Instagram will pop up somewhere on the screen. It's also in the link down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe for loads more Koenigsegg content coming up. Thanks again. Cheers.